Good morning. My name is Abigail Wesson. While I'm disappointed we are unable to be together in person, I'm so thankful for the opportunity to be a part of the inaugural Texas Lyceum virtual conference series. Under the advisement of Dr. Nathaniel Wright, I've had the high honor of serving as one of the Texas Lyceum Fellows for this year. My goal for the fellowship was to create a policy brief focusing on the business of incarceration. Over the past few months, I've conducted interviews with several professionals across the state, including many Lyceum directors and alumni, who have given me valuable insight into the Texas prison system that I hope to share with you all today. Rapid prison population growth in the late 1980s permanently expanded government partnerships with private corporations, nonprofits, and other public agencies, generating an industry of incarceration. As a result, legislators and administrators face challenges to ensure accountability, coordination, and efficiency among numerous organizations with conflicting goals. Leveraging private partnerships within the Texas prison system reflects cost-effective policy solutions to improve service delivery and reduce recidivism. From 1978 to 2010, the number of individuals incarcerated in Texas increased a staggering 541%. In addition to national movements, two state-level initiatives caused palpable spikes in inmate populations. In 1979, Texas established a Drug Abuse Advisory Council, which enacted the strictest drug possession sentencing requirements in the nation. In 1993, Texas legislators revised the penal code to address high violent crime rates. These changes doubled the amount of time violent offenders must serve before becoming eligible for parole. In 2007, the Texas prison population was projected to increase by 17,000 over the next 5 years, requiring $2 billion for additional facility construction. Instead of investing in prison expansion, legislators enacted the Texas Justice Reinvestment Act, increasing funding for several community-based treatment and diversion programs. Marking a turning point in Texas, inmate populations have steadily declined since 2011. However, Texas continues to hold one of the highest incarceration rates in the nation, causing multifaceted consequences affecting generations of Texas residents. The prominent racial disparities within the Texas prison system reveal institutionalized inequities and systemic discriminatory practices with pervasive ramifications. Additionally, recent studies show individuals incarcerated for as few as 3 days experience a detrimental impact on employment, financial stability, housing, and one's ability to adequately support dependents. The cost of operating the Texas prison system is becoming increasingly unsustainable. Expanding 300% in 30 years, the Texas Department of Criminal Justice incarceration budget reaches a record high of $3 billion. Despite recent reductions in inmate populations, prison privatization, the economic repercussions of prison labor, and the expansion of service contracting highlight three critical aspects of the industry of incarceration to thoroughly analyze. In the 1990s, prison corporations gained momentum in response to the state's lack of inmate capacity. Proposed as an efficient and economical solution, private prisons held 12% of Texas prisoners in 2008. Incarceration rate declines over the past decade reduced the number of offenders in private prisons by 60%, but budget allocations to prison corporations reduced only by 13%. Despite claims of significant cost savings, recent studies fail to prove increased efficiency among private facilities. Several states recently banned private prison contracts due to the potentially perverse intentions of for-profit models, impacting living standards and safety. Texas Correctional Industries originated in 1963 following the Prison Made Goods Act, allowing Texas inmates to manufacture goods and provide services for public organizations. Processing over 12,000 outside customer orders in 2018, Texas Correctional Industries sales generated nearly $77 million in profit, in addition to the cost savings of utilizing inmate labor for prison operations. The statutory objectives of Texas Correctional Industries are to provide work program participants with marketable job skills, help reduce recidivism, and reduce department cost. However, there are minimal job prospects for the manufacturing goods and services that inmates provide. The national dialogue surrounding prison labor questions the ethics of this program, where Texas is one of only 5 states refusing to compensate offenders for their work. The 13th Amendment abolished involuntary servitude in 1865, but the law included an exception for individuals convicted of crimes subject to forced unpaid labor. Last legislative session, a bill proposing paying inmates merely $1 a day for their work failed to gain traction, even though Texas correctional industries would continue to profit $45 million per year. The Texas Department of Criminal Justice relies on numerous private vendors to supply additional goods and services necessary for prison operations. During 2018, they processed nearly 50,000 purchase orders and facilitated over 500 contracts. Texas Tech University Health Science Center and the University of Texas Medical Branch provide healthcare services for all Texas prisoners by subcontracting with additional private vendors across the state. Despite prison populations steadily declining, healthcare expenses have increased 41% since 2012. Correctional healthcare represents 25% of the Texas incarceration budget, encroaching $700 million. One factor influencing medical expenditures is the dramatic rise of the aging population in Texas prisons, where the percentage of inmates over 50 has more than quadrupled since 1975. With 47% of correctional healthcare spending allocated to psychiatric services, the most significant contributor to budget growth is the prevalence of mental illness among inmates. Arguably underreported, over half of all adults incarcerated in the U.S. are diagnosed with at least one mental health condition, with the majority suffering from a severe mental illness, making the prison system the largest mental health provider in the nation. Even though Texas has not fully privatized commissary operations, vendors generate significant profit from inmate purchases. Keefe, a large commissary company, made nearly $19 million from Texas prisoners in 2017. Additionally, Citibank generated $6 million in revenue solely from transaction fees and other digital services. A 15-minute phone call in a Texas county jail costs $17.25, the sixth highest rate in the nation, not including additional transaction fees. With over 71% of Texans in jail awaiting sentencing, this high price tag not only exacerbates economic disparities, but makes it difficult for inmates to stay connected with loved ones, which is crucial for successful reentry. Through a competitive bidding process, the cost of a phone call in Texas prisons recently reduced from nearly $4 to 90 cents. CenturyLink receives 60% of this charge, averaging 1.5 million calls per month. Approaching the 87th legislative session, significant economic uncertainty prompted the governor to issue an immediate 5% budget reduction across all state agencies. The Texas Department of Criminal Justice successfully cut expenditures by over $129 million by addressing excess inmate capacity and prioritizing prison closures. Permanently reducing prison populations requires ensuring low recidivism rates, where over half of ex-offenders are rearrested. Texas lawmakers face unique budgetary restraints, limiting funding for opportunities for reentry program expansion. The following policy recommendations involve leveraging partnerships within the industry of incarceration to enact cost-effective solutions for promoting successful reentry. The recent reduction of prison phone call prices highlight a primary benefit of privatization, where a competitive bidding process resulted in a significant opportunity to lower costs and improve services. Capitalizing on privatization through strategic contract negotiations ensures accountability and mutually beneficial partnerships. Texas lawmakers should require prison administrators to negotiate the inclusion of high-speed broadband services in all contracts with telecommunication companies and privately operated prisons. Increasing technology access expands several different online programs without requiring additional funding. Prison healthcare providers recently partnered with Global Med to provide telehealth consultations, saving $3 million by not having to transport offenders or providers. Currently deployed in 30 facilities, the Texas Department of Criminal Justice should expand this program to the remaining 70 facilities, especially in rural prisons lacking the technology required to facilitate video conferencing. This proposal will reduce inmate transfers, improve public safety, increase efficiency, and provide inmates with a high standard of medical care. Employment is one of the most critical and influential factors in reducing recidivism, where stable income directly impacts housing, access to health care, and the ability to support dependents. As a stipulation of criminal supervision, failure to maintain employment may result in reincarceration, preventing inmates from becoming employees, taxpayers, and consumers. Where thousands of inmates participate in Texas correctional industries without pay, only 80 inmates are selected for the Prison Industry Enhancement Certification Program. This program allows private companies to employ offenders for almost $10 an hour. With only 2 private partnerships, state lawmakers should explore policies allowing for the expansion of the certification program to include additional businesses across the state. Targeting employers that develop trade skills and provide vocational certifications for inmates advances their economic capacity and improves their likelihood of securing a livable wage after release. Developing additional partnerships with the private sector reflects an effective strategy for reducing recidivism, promoting economic vitality, and advancing Texas's workforce. With 73% of Texas counties lacking a psychiatrist, the limited access to mental health care in Texas presents several challenges for the criminal justice system, as well as the millions of Texans residing in rural counties. Developing partnerships to increase the immediacy of mental health treatment after intake and following release addresses the state's growing pretrial population and promotes permanent reentry. The Mental Health Grant for Justice-Involved Individuals was introduced in 2017, which funds matching grants for county-based community collaboratives to reduce recidivism among individuals with mental illness. With increased arrest for possession of controlled substances and the high recidivism rates of drug offenses, Texas legislators should consider expanding this model across the state to build capacity among local stakeholders, identify gaps in services, and create plans for expedited service delivery. Moreover, developing partnerships with universities presents a cost-effective approach to coordinate additional mental health services for inmates, improve continuity of care after release, and promote the Texas Loan Repayment Program to grow the state's mental health workforce. Universities are able to provide students in mental health programs with educational opportunities to complete licensure requirements by conducting telehealth sessions with inmates and continuing treatment 3 months after their release. Addressing the mental health workforce shortage increases access to mental health care across the state and ensures ex-offenders have immediate treatment options while navigating the difficult transition into society. In closing, focusing on collaboration and coordination among the numerous public and private organizations involved in the Texas justice system to increase access for mental health care and stable employment continues the downward trend of prison populations, lessens the economic burden of incarceration, and provides critical support to populations that are most vulnerable to rearrest. Thank you all for providing me with the opportunity to speak with you today. My full policy brief is available online on the Texas Lyceum Fellowship page. I look forward to sharing more about my research following this presentation through discussion with Sarah Jackson, the Vice President of the Fellowship Program. Thank you.